But after all of that, let's get straight to a crackerjack panel. As aforementioned, the Senator from Queensland, the leader of One Nation, the lady who's ruffled some feathers, and I enjoyed the scoffs of the Greens as she did it, is Pauline Hanson, who joins us now from our Canberra studio. Well done, Pauline. Truth to power. Of course, you'll cop it from everywhere, but normal people, when I play parts of your speech, they'll get it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It was quite interesting to see the way they were carrying on in the chamber, but that's my job.
Correct, that's it. The former Senator, part of In My View, 8 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Sundays and plenty more times here on Sky News. Well, we call him Showbiz. Let's check in with the fake tan. How's it going with Corey Bernardi? Of course, no, you're returning to a normal skin tone. A normal skin tone there, my friend.
Well, how kind of you to say so, mate. But it's lovely to be with you. But I want to say last night's show, Paul, was a cracker, and the highlight for me was learning how to pronounce Buttigieg's name, just in case it comes up today.
Yeah, it was Buttigieg. You say it quickly together and you get there. Well done to Troy Bramston. And Stephen Conroy, who was putting out fires on the behalf of Albo. We'll get to those in a moment or two, the former Labor Senator, part of the Sky News family. How's Melbourne tonight, mate?
Yeah, no, very nice. Very pleasant in Melbourne tonight.
All right, well, Channel 10 very excited about a rebel group of Labor MPs. We'll get to that in a second. But first, Pauline and part of her speech that she gave today in response to an annual conversation that has now happened 12 times about what we are doing to close the gap with Indigenous Australia. Here's part of what she told the Senate.
If you want to close the gap, start taking some responsibility for your own people. As the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. We've provided the schools. It's now up to you to send your own kids to school. We've provided the jobs, but it's up to you to turn up when you're rostered on, not when it suits. It's up to the Aboriginals to stay off the grog and the drugs.
She said this also about the whole concept of closing the gap as an annual political tradition of hand-wringing.
Closing the gap is the marketing term used by politicians and bureaucrats so they can feel good about themselves and get in front of TV cameras and pretend they're doing something to lift remote First Nations people out of their self-perpetuating hellholes. Most Australians know that tens of billions of dollars are spent each year to help alter the standard of living between those in remote Aboriginal communities and even those living in our developed parts of Australia. When you spend billions of dollars a year on any group of people, you expect outcomes.
I can't see what's unreasonable about this, Pauline, because we are in this moment where there is a lot of targeted government programs at the federal and the state level. We've talked about the problems that exist in places like Arakoon. You spoke about communities even further north. That's where this comes from.
It does, Paul. You've got to go back to 1996 when I first delivered my speech in Parliament, when I was first elected to Parliament. And what I called for at that time was equality for all Australians. Now, I won that election with the biggest swing in the nation. Nothing has changed since that period of time. The inequality is still happening. We are throwing tens of billions of dollars at this through local, state and federal government levels. Closing the gap, in my opinion, is about treating everyone equally and stop the division that's happening in our nation. I have travelled quite extensively. I've spoken to the Aboriginal elders. They themselves are saying they've lost control and everything's been given to the land councils, which they don't trust. They don't believe is doing the right thing by their people. I have had continually told of people who are ripping off the system that they have no say over it. We have problems with kids being raped. How can a 2-year-old have STD? How can that's sexually transmitted disease? If that was happening in white society, Paul, they would take the children away. We don't. We turn it back on, and of course you can't get involved in that because that's cultural issues. So we're not out there protecting the children. I went up to Doomadgee. Now you've got children that are starving there. They virtually just go to school so they can get a feed. These are things that are happening in our communities. And you know what? It has to be the truth. We don't need any more organisations that are set up because there's no reporting done on it. So the next year it comes around, nothing's happened. Well, we need another program. They don't need any more programs. They need to be held to account for the money that's been given to them. And if that program's not working, then you don't get more money for it. And start helping these people, because I'm in fear for the future generations and the division that's happening in this nation. And if they reckon they want a voice, then I know they've got 5 in the parliament who claim Aboriginality. So how much more of a voice do they want?
Well, and then you had the Greens straight away after your speech, because of course, you know, you're the Joker to their Batman, as they would view it. You're the, you know, Thanos to their Captain America and all the rest of it, that we must move a motion in the parliament for speaking standards, because what you've just said is hate speech. I don't think anyone watching us right now would think anything other than we want to make sure that a kid who grows up in Tennant Creek could one day be Prime Minister. It's a bit difficult if their parents aren't taking them to school or people aren't being held accountable for the violence that's happening in their homes.
You are exactly right. You know what's also happening? They've got the My Pathways programs, which is costing millions of dollars a year. You know what they do in these communities? They actually drive around to the homes, pick them up, take them back to the building. They get them to sign the book, then they get them back in the car and they take them back home again. My Pathways program is a blasted joke. The communities, the elders, the mayors that I've spoken to, they want to go back to the CDEP program, and that's an employment program. The councils want to run it themselves, not these ones that are set up who are ripping the guts out of it and the money's out of it. And this is why I'm working with the communities. I've taken these issues to Ken Wyatt, the Aboriginal Minister. I've written to the Health Minister about health issues too, sexually transmitted diseases, and the state members in Queensland as well. And I believe instead of us costing us $1 million to build a house in North Queensland, right at the tip, Bamaga, that we need to, and I spoke to them, give them the $2 million because they said they can build a house for $200,000. Give them a go at doing their own self-determination and trying to work to build their own homes instead of costing the taxpayers 5 times the cost of what it's costing. It's ridiculous. I'm going to keep pushing for this, Paul.
No,
I'm going to keep speaking the truth. They're not going to shut me down.
No, as well you should. Stephen Conroy, what's wrong with what's just been said here? Because obviously the hand-wringing was there from your old team, the Greens saying that it was hate speech. When people hear what Pauline just said, and I showed of the speech, it's about accountability. We all know that as parents we have accountability for our children. Why are other communities let off because of absolute atrocities of the past?
Well, look, firstly, I don't think the Greens and Adam Bant, if you look at what's gone on for the last 2 years, the civil war inside the Victorian Greens and the allegations about what's been said and what's been done, I think Adam Bant should have a good look at behind him in his own state before he starts lecturing other people about the conduct. I don't agree that Pauline's language fell into hate speech. I don't agree with it. But I think that the best way to deal with and challenge Pauline's views is to debate them.
Well, what's wrong with what she just said then? You've got to hear.
Well, look, unfortunately, if only the world was as simple as we could just take all the money away, we just take all their programs away, it's all their own fault, if only they would do better. I just don't quite think that approach is reasonable. I don't think it works, and it ultimately hurts people that Pauline says she wants to help.
But she's not saying take the money away. She's saying give the money more directly to the ground, not to the phalanxes of industries.
Well, the way that the programs are delivered. So I'm going to disagree with Pauline. I think an annual
You're the problem,
accounting...
Stephen. That's why we've got the problem. You are it. You're the problem because you have a closed mind to all this, and the whole fact is that nothing's changed.
I listened to you, Pauline. You had a 10-minute rant. You had a 10-minute rant, and I listened to you, Pauline. So I'd appreciate it if I at least get 2 or 3 minutes.
But you're not answering the question. You're not answering the question, Stephen. Why I am wrong in what I'm saying.
I'm glad you're listening.
Paul's right.
I'm glad you're listening to me, Pauline.
I never said that to take the money away. I want accountability for taxpayers'
I can hear you listening to me, Pauline.
All right. Okay, Stephen. All right. You got clear air. Let's go. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you. So I don't think Pauline's approach of tough love and her approach is much harsher than a tough love, though she likes to cloak it in that sort of language. I think it would ultimately impact in an even more harsh way than the current circumstances. I will support and agree with holding people to account. But one of the ways you hold them to account is you have a day like today where you've got to actually stand up and say we've spent all this money and it doesn't seem to have made a difference. Well, then let's deal with the program's flaws and faults and let's find a better way to do it. I don't think we should say this is all a waste of time. We should hand more money down to the local grassroots. What we've got to have is accountability at any level, whether it's grassroots or it's at a more bureaucratic approach that Pauline is criticising. So I think that there is a merit in having today. I think that it holds to account. Has it sufficiently been adapted, changed, best practice? All of that should be on the table. All of that should be reviewed. And if Pauline took a constructive approach to say, look, why don't we change the way this program is delivered, and instead of all of the other tough love messages that she's been putting out there, and I said, I'm being polite when I describe them as tough love.
All right, I want to get to Corey.
Sorry,
Corey, you've seen this. We've seen part of this speech. You've given plenty in the Parliament. What do you think? Do you think this is anywhere near the hate speech that the Greens suggest, or the tough love that Stephen is suggesting?
Paul, it's certainly not hate speech, but we expect that sort of pejorative slur coming from the Greens. I remember actually they teamed up with you, Stephen, I think, to call the Murdoch media hate speech at some point when they were disagreeing with Labor's agenda.
I didn't team up with the Greens at any stage on that issue.
Yeah, I know you were just following orders, Penny's orders, I think, if at the time.
No, Corey.
Paul, I regret, Paul. None of this is actually new. Pauline, congratulations for belling the cat on it. But, you know, what we've got a reality is this. There's, say, 500,000 Aboriginal people in this country, and some from Papua New Guinea and New Zealand, of course, now. They get about $75,000 per person on top of welfare and on top of everything else that's available to other Australians. That money is clearly being wasted. That's how I would look at it. There's hundreds of billions of dollars tied up in Aboriginal corporations being run by this elite, the Aboriginal royal family, I described them as many years ago, and they're doing nothing to help their own people. So why not stop throwing taxpayers' money at them and let the Aboriginal corporations invest some of the money that they've got there, they're hoarding, for betterment of their own people.
Pauline, are you ready for the incoming of the next couple of days?
What do you mean, the incoming?
Oh, all the nonsense that'll come from the left, from the Greens, from the Screamers, from the establishment in Canberra. You ready?
Paul, I've been dealing with this for the last 24 years. Come on, bring it on.
You were born ready.
I'm ready for a debate on this. Yeah, bring it on. I've got no problems. Let them answer me and give me some, and the people of Australia, a direct answer to my concerns, because I really care about those kids out there. And when I see that they are starving, they're not being fed properly, you've got the alcohol problem, the drugs that's in these communities, it's a crying shame, and we're allowing it to go on.
All right.
Sorry, I won't sit back and not have a say.
If you have a view, if you have experience in any of these communities, if you're Indigenous and you'd like to speak on the behalf of your communities, please send me an email, paul@skynews.com.au. Channel 10 had a little story tonight they got very excited by, which was the apparent outing of a rebel group of Labor MPs. Here's part of this story.
They call themselves the Otis Group, after the swanky Canberra restaurant where they first met. And last night we busted one of them.
G'day, Don.
Video, how are you, mate?
Back at the scene.
What's the Otis Group?
Oh, the Otis Group is just a group of Labor people who are interested in supporting coal workers.
Does Albo know about it?
Look, I'm not sure whether Albo knows about it or not.
Apparently there are 9 frontbenchers that are part of this group, not all of them, of course, at dinner last night, and I'm not entirely sure whether one of the people who was being suggested as coming in and out of it wasn't actually a government minister, but we'll get to all of that. This is the image of all of those people. I think it was Richard Colback who was being fingered as part of it, but we'll see what happens. All right, now, this is sort of being suggested that it was, look, I don't think Albo's leadership's under threat in any way. I think the question is a little misleading at the bottom of our screen, but look, this is a bunch of pro-coal people, but there's a lot of pretty powerful people in all of that, Stephen. So is this a bunch of people who want to fight back the lefties within their own party, or this is the beginnings of the rump of those that will become disquietant with the leader?
Well, look, Joel Fitzgibbon was the first member of the New South Wales right after the last election loss to call on the New South Wales right to support Anthony Albanese's leadership, a member of the New South Wales left.
So what does the Otis Group mean? Did you ring around? What is it?
Yeah, look, I have had a chat to a few of the former colleagues, and look, if every single dinner of every single set of colleagues had to be reported to the leader of the day, it would be a pretty boring list they'd have to make. Every Sunday night, people get together. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, people get together. They kick around ideas, they have chats, they talk about policy. This is a healthy thing. This is a group of people who support the coal mining industry and particularly the workers in the coal mining industry. And I think it's great that the voice of the regional and rural Australians, particularly those who support and work and are assisted.
They just have to meet in secret, and when they get caught, they sort of all pretend that there's nothing in this. Ambushed outside a restaurant with loaded questions is pretty low rent behaviour. And I really think this is attempting to create a story that does not exist. All right, Corey, has Stephen Conroy allayed all fears here? Nothing to see? Just a bunch of people who are like-minded about coal?
Stephen has always been a good spin master, and congratulations, Stephen. But, you know, when you see someone of the influence and authority and power, such as Don Farrell, fronting the TV cameras, explaining this is just a simple group of people that are not informing their leader, but we like the coal industry, you know there's trouble afoot.
All right, see what happens. Each way elbow, safe for now, safe for now. All right, quick break, back with more, plenty more to talk about here on Paul Murray Live, including the plan to silence the leader of the government in the Senate. It was a stupid idea, and I'm glad that plenty of people changed their mind about this today, although they only won the vote by one. More in a sec.